Advocates, lawyers, 20 people packed into a small conference room in a public school. Is this ringing a bell? Today on the Autism Outreach Podcast, we are talking about navigating contentious IEP meetings. I am going to share with you my 5 top tips and strategies for navigating meetings of this nature. And I hope this is helpful information, whether you're working in a public school or a clinical setting. I have always attended contentious IEP meetings, whether I worked in a non-public program or a public school. I have always been focused on helping autistic learners and students with complex communication needs, which usually means there are going to be a lot of professionals, parents, advocates, lawyers, administrators, teachers. You get what I'm saying. It can be hard to know how to navigate those things. So I'm going to share my 5 top tips and strategies with you. I cannot wait to dig into this information today.
You're listening to Autism Outreach Podcast, a podcast full of ready-to-use strategies to help those with autism strengthen their communication skills. Here's your host, Rose Griffin of ABA Speech, a speech therapist and board-certified behavior analyst who shares tips you can use in your next therapy session.
Welcome to what I would tell myself my first year dealing with contentious IEP meetings. I have been doing this 20 plus years, and I have been in contentious IEP meetings just about every single year that I've been practicing. And I think it is just because of the places that I've worked. So I worked in a very affluent school district. I worked in a very highly regarded non-public program and have always been focused on helping all autistic learners find a way to communicate with the world. And with that comes some contentious IEP meetings. I'm not going to lie, a lot of contentious IEP meetings. And I do not want you to feel the way that I do, and still do when I'm in a contentious IEP meeting, although it's getting better. Just conflict is kind of part of what we do in our line of work. People are not always going to agree with everything. I'm kind of been talking about this ASHA article about conflict in the IEP team. And I'm definitely somebody who doesn't like conflict unless it's necessary, really. And so it kind of erodes my spirit a little bit to be in these meetings because I think as clinicians, we feel like when we're in a contentious IEP meeting that we might take it personally. And what I have found, it's hardly ever about the services. Usually, sometimes people want more services and they might be kind of angling and getting upset about things. It's a weird way to go about requesting more services. That's not always the case, but I digress. So, welcome to our last installment of our summer solo shows. And in this episode, I am going to be talking about contentious IEP meetings. So, my top 5 tips and strategies. Number 1, so important, is to know the guest list. Know who is coming to the meeting. Who is going to be there? Will there be an advocate there? You need to know. Are they going to bring a lawyer? Because we won't even have the meeting as a public school if there is a lawyer on one side and not on the other. We need to know who will be in attendance. That is going to allow you to plan appropriately. Obviously, you would have the meeting the same way, present the same information, but you need to know who is going to be there. So if you are not the case manager, if you are not the person who developed that guest list, if you are not the person who invited people to the meeting, ask, who's coming? Who will be there? That will be good for you to know. Maybe you have a history with an advocate in your area. Maybe you have a history with this parent. And maybe you feel like you need support. Maybe you feel like you need support. That's the other thing. This kind of goes with number 1, but if you feel uncomfortable with the guest list or you feel that this could be a contentious IEP meeting, have your special education director present. Have your special education director present. That person's role, among a million gazillion other things, is to be a support to you. They are there to set boundaries, to have an agenda, and to keep things moving along. Okay? Know the guest list. Number two, listen up. It is not okay to be verbally abused at work. I'll say it again. It is not okay to be verbally abused at work. Not okay. I have been in meetings where people have gotten yelled at and they have cried and they have got up of said meeting and left the room. Now, not every workplace is going to be like that, and nobody should be made to feel that way at work. I'm not to say that sometimes we don't have to change and modify and tweak services, but nobody should be verbally abused at work. And if you're working with administrators who are not firm and who don't set boundaries, or vice versa, I have seen people be verbally abused by parents, and I've seen people be verbally abused by their own administrators. Just know, I have a talk, an ethics talk, navigating contentious IEP meetings with confidence, something like that. I'll put it in the show notes. It's a nice talk. It's a self-paced course in the connection. And we talk about when I roll up to Starbucks, today I went to Dunkin', but when I roll up to Starbucks, they have a nice little placard. And basically, it's a very nice way to say, be nice to our staff. That's what they're saying. And I show this. And then I have a little message on what I think should be discussed at the start of an IEP meeting. We are all here to help your child. We are all here to help your child on their communication journey. We may be thinking that there are different ways to go about that, but we are all here and wanting the same end result. And so you really have to set a tone. And if you're in a workplace where that is not happening, where that tone is not set, and people are getting yelled at in meetings, that's a red flag for your work environment. But that's a whole other show I may do someday. Okay. So just know that there should be boundaries set. Number 3, prep with your team prior to the meeting and take time to debrief. So we would call these staffings. I don't know if that was when I was in Austin or when I was here in Cleveland, but if we had a meeting and it was like lots of people involved and it was a student who received many services, and we would meet before. We would have a staffing. It was just like a case review. Okay, this is what services look like. This is what the assessment is. These are our present levels. This is how things are going. And this is what I'm proposing. These are important things to talk about. You want to be prepared. You want to be prepared. So you want to prep. And then after said meeting, I have found that it is hard after these meetings that might go on 2 or 3 hours. It is hard to just be like, okay, I'm going to do speech, or okay, now I'm going to go and do that FBA for a student. We really want to take time to debrief if possible on just more of a like professional, but personal level as well. Like, okay, that was stressful, right? These meetings are stressful, and it's okay to feel that way. And it's okay to verbalize that. Number 4, there will always be conflict in the work that we do. It's just the truth. There's an article that I've mentioned by Abell. The person's last name is Abell, Abell, called Conflict Engagement for Individualized Education Program Team Members. I talk about this article in my Navigating IEP course. That is an ethics course, because that is hard for a lot of us. I think a lot of us that go into this field are here to help people. And when we get into these not so warm and fuzzy meetings, it can feel like a personal attack on our intentions. And that's a bad feeling. It's just an awful feeling, especially when you're working so hard to try to help somebody. And then you have all these conflicts, and it just, it erodes your spirit inside. I guess I'm speaking from personal experience here, but I know you're hearing me because I just did an Instagram post on a really contentious IEP meeting I was in, and it was one of my most popular Instagram posts ever. Okay. So I hate that a lot of us feel the same way and have been through this, but it's the truth. And I like this article. This article says a lot of great stuff, but I think what resonated with me is that we are going to have conflict. We are. Right. I talk about speech therapy, BCBA conflict a lot because it's just the elephant in the room. It's everywhere. But there's a lot of conflict, and we all want the same thing. We want to help maximize client outcomes. We want to help the student on their communication journey. There might just be differing ideas about how to do that from a methodology standpoint, from a service minute standpoint, and then that is where this conflict arises. Okay, so just know that there's going to be conflict. Sorry. Sorry to break it to you. Okay, number 5 is try to understand where the motive for the conflict is coming from. Why is the team member on the IEP team, which is a lot of people, why is the team member upset? Are they upset with the progress the student is making? Are they upset because the school said they were going to do something and they didn't? Are they upset because the intervention isn't what they had expected? Are they anxious? Are they mad about previous services? That's another thing too. You might have a student who has a learning history where it wasn't the best services, and then they come to you and you're providing really awesome, robust services, but that isn't what sticks in the brain. What sticks in the brain are the services that were not great. And there are services that are not great. Let's be honest, from the field of speech therapy and BCBA. There are services that are not great, and that's going to stick with the parent, and they may be nervous that this will be the same way. Okay, so contentious IEP meetings. I hope that you don't ever have to attend a contentious IEP meeting, but people that are listening to the show, I'm for certain have attended at least one. And so I want to share these 5 tips that I wish I had known when I was getting into this field. Number 1 is know the guest list. Who is going to be there? If you are not the case manager, ask. And if there is somebody in attendance that you have a history with, or you know is not kind, or is an advocate, or is a lawyer, et cetera, you need to tell your special education director, I really need your support at this meeting. I really need your support at this meeting. Number 2, it's not okay to be verbally abused at work. We need to set boundaries. And if somebody is being very unkind and unprofessional to you, you need to do what is best for you in that moment. I hope that you never have to do something where you get up and leave a meeting or anything of that nature, but people send me Instagram DMs all the time about wild IEP meetings that they've been to. Number 3, prep with your team prior to the meeting. This is not a meeting that we go in just kind of like, woo, no draft sent, boop, boop, boop. No, we're sending a draft. We're getting feedback. We're incorporating what feedback we can. And we're meeting before. We're having a staffing. We're debriefing after the meeting. We're debriefing. Number 4, there will always be conflict. Check out my ASHA and ACE approved course about navigating contentious IEP meetings. It is very, very helpful. I go into this in much greater detail. And number 5, try to understand where the conflict is coming from. Maybe we need to have a better framework for ongoing communication. Maybe it was just a missed communication. Maybe it's a difference in opinion about intervention and evidence-based practice. Communication helps. It's not going to change everything. We may not agree on 100% of things, and that's okay, but it's going to make the process easier for us to help the student on their communication journey. I hope that this has been a helpful episode. I have really enjoyed these summer solo shows. If they have been helpful for you, make sure that you leave me a review. Just go over to Apple Podcasts, review Autism Outreach. That really helps me know, is this helping you? Whenever somebody sends me a message and say they listen to the podcast, it always just brightens my day. I love to know that this information is helping others. And when you leave a review, it lets other people know that we are talking about important things here on the show. Until next time, remember to keep things fun and functional, and see you soon. Thanks for listening to Autism Outreach. If you enjoyed the show today, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode full of actionable strategies you can use in your therapy room. Write a review too. That would mean so much to me. I always love hearing from you. Have a specific topic that you want included on a future show? Reach out over on Instagram, ABA Speech by Rose, or visit me at www.abaspeech.org.